You're listening to the Jōrni Podcast. Could our bodies be an energetic blueprint for resolving old patterns and changing everything we create in our lives? Join me for today's fascinating exploration. This episode contains adult subject matter and some listeners may be triggered by this content. Listener discretion is advised. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer. What if everything we've been told about holistic health, healing, and well-being is only part of the story? Because thriving in today's world looks different than it used to. Here, we challenge the narratives, rethink what it means to become human, and explore how that shapes the way we lead, live, and step into our full potential. This is the Jōrni Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. We can know exactly what needs to change and still feel our bodies unfold an old response before we can consciously choose otherwise. Laura Morrice is an energy alignment specialist and pattern reader with over 25 years of experience working at the root of what keeps high-achieving women stuck. Based in Scotland, she's the founder of the Chakra Coach, a precision diagnostic practice that goes beyond mindset to identify the energetic patterns running beneath the surface of every result a woman is or isn't getting. A Scottish Prestige Award winner for the Holistic Leadership Coach of the Year 2026, former columnist for Soul and Spirit magazine, and 4 times best-selling author, Laura has spent decades doing the work that most coaches don't know exists. She works with women who have done the therapy, the courses, the inner work, and are still hitting the same wall. Her diagnostic approach spans the chakra system, human design, gene keys, astrology, and numerology, reading the full energetic architecture of a person's life rather than treating the symptom. Her core belief is simple and non-negotiable. You don't get what you want. You get what you are. When the pattern changes, everything changes. Here is my interview with Laura Morrice. Hi, Laura. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because we'll be talking about why are we still stuck even though we've done all the work. And I feel a lot of our listeners can definitely relate to that, me included. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Petra. It's always an honor to be doing something with you, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here speaking and sharing, for your audience.
Yeah, I feel that you share so much deep and profound wisdom through your own journey and, of course, through your work as well. And this is one of the pieces that I know you have worked with for quite some time, and many people are asking themselves these kind of questions nowadays, not just in their physical health, but in their life, relationships, and their work, how they're building abundance, really everything. I'm so glad that you're here and we can dive into this and create this beautiful episode together. For starters, would you like to share maybe a little bit about your own story or journey, maybe the parts that you feel connect to what you do today, and also let our listeners know what it is that you do today?
Okay. Well, as you all have heard, my name's Laura Morrice, if you don't know me already, and I'm known as the Chakra Coach because I use the chakra system as a diagnostic framework in my coaching and mentoring. So what I specialize in is energy alignment and literacy, which is the ability to read and interpret the energetic patterns that shape our identity, behavior, and results. So partly why I use the chakra system is because it's the only framework I have personally found, and it's the one that I was awakened to remember in my own journey. It links together all aspects of our energy bodies. It links our physical being, so that literally our physical body and everything that's in there, including all our physiology. It links our emotional being, our mental being, and our spiritual being. Why is that important? Well, when it comes to alignment and being in alignment, it matters that all aspects of our being are in a state of coherence, so that the signal we send out, because we are literally, if we think on ourselves as beacons that are constantly emitting a frequency, a signal, but because we have different aspects to our being, if they're not operating in coherence, we send out mixed signals. Now, the universe responds to the loudest one, which isn't the one that we want it to be. It's the loudest, truest signal, which is always the underlying emotional state that's held by our subconscious mind. That's a little bit about what I do and how I do it. And the reason I do this is it became very apparent to me quite young on that there were certain patterns following me about in life. And although I had an awareness of them, it stayed as an awareness for a very long time. So very quickly, I grew up in a regular home, mum, dad, two twin brothers that are 7 years older than me. My dad worked offshore. My mum had her own emotional trauma issues. And as being younger, I didn't really understand that the same. She grew up in a generation that was, don't speak about the uncomfortable things, or we don't speak about our emotions. That makes other people feel uncomfortable. So you will learn to squash them down and be quiet about them and just get on with it. Well, that led her to then use alcohol as a crutch. And over the years, it got a little bit worse. Fast forward, I was about 12. My brothers moved out to go to uni. Then it was just me and mum at home while dad was away. And I didn't really recognize that I was lacking in emotional nourishment because of it. But ultimately, I was. And I didn't really want to be in the home environment. I was looking for escapism. And I found it in all the wrong places. At 16, I became a heroin addict. Even at that age, the irony wasn't lost on me that I was actually following in my mum's footsteps, albeit slightly different. 2 years in a very serious addiction. I got out of it, I got away, I got clean. It was also a very abusive relationship. That's when I went to college and started studying beauty and complementary therapy. And it was the physical side of healing that really lit me up. So massage, reflexology, aromatherapy. That's when I first got introduced to zone therapy and chakras properly. Fast forward another few years, I was very successful managing the spa at Skibo Castle. I got into a relationship with someone who was my best friend at the time. But because I'd never done any of the emotional healing, fast forward 6 years, he had now turned into an alcoholic. It was a mentally abusive relationship, and I had lost myself more than when I was a heroin addict. At that point, I remember being in the car, crying, like wailing, driving on my own. I was literally screaming out to God, why is this happening? Why is this happening? I'm not asking for any of this. And I totally believed that was true. I'm not asking for any of this. And then one night watching The Secret, not long after, with my best friend Teresa, Bob Proctor stares right down the camera lens into my soul and states, everything in your life, you've created it. But instead of feeling that initial sense of, like devastation almost, or denial, not wanting to admit, how can I possibly? I had this montage of all different life events, and I could clearly see how I had invited everything in unknowingly because of the patterns that were running underneath in my subconscious. And me thinking I'd got into a safe relationship I didn't see, all the underlying alarm bells until it was too late. Or not too late, but that was the moment, that was my pure moment of breakdown. And then I'd started getting into non-physical healing. So Reiki, crystal healing, meditation. This was now all flooding in, like the universe was saying, right, you're ready for the next step. You're ready for the next step. And one day when I was doing a self-healing session, I just had this moment of pure realization. People would now call it a download or whatever. But I was transported somewhere in an instant, very real. And as I was self-healing, specifically working through the 7 major chakras, I had this moment where I wasn't learning. I was remembering how to use them. And it was like you sometimes see films where there'll be formulas like coming up over the screen to imply that the person's just like, they can read it all, they're absorbing it all in. Well, it was like that. But I was being shown very clearly how my root chakra connected to certain parts in my body. But then it transported me right back to my earliest memories of fear. Fear, but not really understanding what the fear was and how it was shaping me. And that was going right back to like my first unknown memory of my mum being drunk. And then it started to piece the emotions I was carrying. Then from the emotions, it pieced the thoughts. Not necessarily the thoughts that were true, but the thoughts I had made true in relation to those experiences and how they made me feel at the time. And then I could see how that fear then had been layered through the rest of my life. It really was quite an empowering moment. And since then, that has formed the basis of my work. Firstly, for myself to heal and become whole. And then as time went on, it was made very clear and apparent I didn't just get this for me. It opened me up. That's really what opened me up to my natural gifts of pattern recognition. And then it was like, this is your purpose, and this is how you're here to be of service. And since then, I've been honoring those gifts, adding to them, tweaking them, and literally walking that walk every day. Is that the longest answer to a question you've ever had?
I love it. I think it gives our listeners a lot of insight into why it is that you're working with clients now exactly like you are, because of your own personal experiences, the connections that you made in your own body and mind with all of this. I think this is a place that a lot of us come to, is where we're asking, why does this pattern come back? Why can't I break this income ceiling? Why do I return to abusive relationships? And all of these questions that we come to at some point and wonder why this is happening. And also that truth that you recognized in Bob Proctor there, we wonder, could we really be the source of all of this creation that we manifested? Could that be? Because that can be a very scary insight. It can create a lot of guilt and shame and blame within us, right? If we think that we manifested these occurrences and patterns in our lives, that can be a really dark time that comes from all of that while we kind of make sense of that. So I'm really glad that you found a way of understanding this and helping yourself to make sense and move through this and find a way for healing. Because this, I feel, is one of the more difficult parts, is right when we come to this realization and we think, oh, wow, am I just a really bad human being? I manifest these bad things for myself. How do we move to healing from that? And I love that you found that connection to the chakras and that you're working with that. And I feel a lot of our listeners are probably really curious how exactly that works when we connect the chakras to these patterns that come up for ourselves in our lives, and how we can actually move from these places of coming to a realization of, oh, wow, this is not what I wanted to hear, to moving forward into our own empowerment, our own healing. And for yourself, a lot of wisdom that came with that. So share a little bit about how that actually comes together then for other people when you're working with them. How do you connect the chakras to some of these patterns that are happening in their lives? And how does that help them move forward with some of the challenges that they're experiencing?
Yeah, this is a really good question. Each one of the 7 major chakras has its own area of concern. For the root chakra, it governs what we need for our safety and our survival. Under that umbrella fall your home environment, your shelter, your needs being met, you being protected and provided for. It also relates to family units and the community in which we grow up in. So you can see all of those things pretty much form the foundation of our life and the things that we need in order, to be safe, to be protected, to be provided for, our needs being met. Each of the 7 major chakras also have a main, what I like to call emotional alarm. I really don't like to say that emotions are positive or negative. Sometimes I do, but it's more just for a label so people can kind of know what we're speaking about. But really, none of our emotions are bad or wrong. They're all valid. They're all serving a purpose. So the main emotional alarm, now I'm going to call it a negative one for the root, would be fear. So you can see just even the word fear. Am I safe? If you don't feel, you feel fear. If you don't feel protected and provided for, okay, there's a sense of fear. The positive counterpart of that would be faith and trust. Now, each chakra, I'm just using the root chakra as the example just now to form a picture around this one chakra, but each one has its own. Each chakra also has its time when it's developed. So for the root chakra, it's the first one. It develops between the ages of 0 and approximately 6. So the ages that form the foundation of our life experience, okay? Now, if we look at, let's just say, fear shows up for you in particular areas, and you're aware. Just let's say, for example, you, Petra, have had bad relationships in the past, so you have maybe a fear of commitment, right? And you're aware that this is running, but you're not exactly sure why. Well, in my one-on-one sessions, I would actually connect in with your energy using myself as a surrogate. This is part of my unique gifts. I would then tap in to the different chakras using whatever concern you'd brought to the table that day. And that gives me access. It's like me having a conversation with your higher self. And I'll tap into roundabout the time of what happened and why it happened, because I pick up on that emotional vibration that's in your energy state. And I have something that's called clairsentience. I have an inner knowing when I connect in with people. It doesn't necessarily come through visions or hearing anything. I start to tap into a frequency, a knowing, and once I lock in it forms a picture. I may start to hear things, I write it down, and then when I tell the client that, they're like, no way, yes, this happened, da 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 da. But we can do that for ourselves, because you can then be like, okay, I'm aware I have this underlying pattern of fear. It's showing up for me, particularly in relationships. None of them seem to work out. Why is that? Okay, if I go back and look at my life between the ages of 0 and 6, can I see where this may have first been introduced? Was there fear going on in the relationships that you were growing up and being a witness to? Because all of the patterns that we operate on, they're all imprints. None of them are naturally ours. We've either picked them up through generational conditioning, or through our environment as we've been growing up, through other people's opinions of us. There are so many different components. And again, it's the beautiful thing about the chakra system. Using all of this in relation, you can only relate it to your own life experience. So while yours may be similar to somebody else's, all of the details will never be the same. And that's then where you start to join the dots. Okay, this was apparent for me then. Now from that, this led me to believe I wasn't safe in this kind of environment. And because that was the belief I was holding, and my subconscious attached onto it, because what our subconscious mind starts to do when we have a belief about anything is, unknowingly to us, it begins to scan our environment, looking for more evidence to make that belief true. And it will find it. And then that's another layer added onto the belief system. It's another hook. So you go, okay, that must be true. So it alters your vibrational frequency. Now, because we don't get what we want, we get what we are. And more specifically, we get what we are a vibrational match to. Now, unbeknown to you, you are pulling towards you through your vibration, through the energy signature that you're emitting 24/7, signals of fear. I'm not safe. I'm not enough. My needs aren't met and provided for. So what happens? The universe rises to meet you wherever you're at. And it then sends you more of what you are. You then live your life on this pattern and you don't remove it. You add to it. The problem being, the very first time that seed was planted, your response was actually intelligence protecting you in some way or another. But the moment's over and it's gone. But that pattern and belief remained and has been practiced now for so long. The person doesn't view it as a pattern. It's now part or labeled as part of their identity. And they will defend that identity and hold on to it. This is how they form, and using the chakra system specifically, this is part of joining the dots. And then you can take it deeper. You can join it even deeper into the physical body symptoms that are showing up, but then also, because each chakra relates to a specific gland and a specific hormone release, you can now start to see how your whole system is being negatively impaired by the misalignment of that energy center. And by the time it shows up as physical symptoms, it's already been running underneath the surface for a very long time. Physical symptoms are the last symptoms that will show up as a sign of misalignment. But none of them are there to be feared. Again, all of these things, they're clues. That's why I don't like calling them negative emotions. They're an emotional alarm. They are sounding off, trying to get your attention to say, you're now focused on something that's not true. You're going in the wrong direction. But I'm here trying to get your attention to say, move in this direction. So I wanted to go into that much detail so that people can clearly understand the chakra system really shouldn't be seen as this woo-woo spiritual concept. It is our body's original energetic architecture. That's what it was designed for. The 7 chakras are the 7 internal churches and revelations, the 7 seals. These are the 7 centers that need to be purified in order for us to reach that state of enlightenment, if that's what we choose to do. But at the very least, they will allow us to live in alignment, coherent alignment. That means we're in alignment with our purpose.
Wow, this is fascinating. And I think a lot of people think of these ancient systems, as you said, as a bit of woo-woo that we can't really relate to. But when you explain it in this way, I feel this really sounds into how a lot of us are getting confused by what's happening, not finding the answers to things, even though we are doing self-care or this or that to help ourselves, right? But if this fundamental energetic blueprint isn't aligned, of course, everything else that gets layered on top of that is going to be misaligned as well. So that makes sense that it ripples through all of the layers of our lives and then has, as you said, in the end, maybe even physical consequences that we start noticing. I'm really curious, Laura, that some people say to me, well, if I had known that this was happening, or I had known that this was an event that caused this for me, I would have changed it a long time ago. So how can people work with things that they may not be aware of, right? So if we go back to, for example, between the age of 0 and 6, and maybe there are some things that happen in the family that we're not consciously aware of, that we don't have a conscious memory of. So how can people start to work with that, with the things that they may not be consciously aware of that could be driving those patterns, that they might just not be able to say, well, this was an event that happened, or this is a memory that I have?
I have the perfect example for that. One of my friends, and we were sitting chatting one day. She runs a women's group and she'd invited me in to speak. And it was just like a kind of open communication. And she said, well, do you know, and she went, Laura, I know I've got a blockage. I know I have a misalignment in my sacral chakra, and I've done so much work. And for the life of me, I really can't think on what it is that's happened. And I said, okay, I want you to close your eyes for a minute. And I want you just to hold that awareness that you have that something's misaligned and you're following your inner guidance. It's a misalignment in my sacral chakra. It's like, how does it feel? Literally, don't try and think about how it feels. Tune into your body right now. What can you feel? What's stirring in that level of awareness for you? And she went straight away. She said, it's going to sound the strangest thing. I feel it in my umbilical cord. And I went, and that's where it is. This was not yours. This was your mum's. And it was passed on to you literally while you were in her stomach through your umbilical cord. And as soon as I said that to her, she just went, oh my God. She went, it's gone. She went, just that level of awareness. And then later on, she obviously went home and sat with it. And she was just like, I know that's it. Because I personally couldn't, there wasn't. So it kind of was her pattern because she'd inherited it, right? Not hers by origin, but she'd still been carrying it. Often it's not we try to heal using too much of our logical, analytical mind. And the issue with our mind and healing is it's not there to help us heal. Nobody's mind is. It's there for figuring out things on a logical, analytical basis. As things come in, our mind is there to help us problem solve along the way. But when it comes to actually healing and releasing, it's not there to do that, because if we move into our mind too much and allow it to lead, it keeps us looping. It keeps us going back over and over. And once you identify the root of something, this might sound quite controversial and hard to believe, but once you identify the root, whether it was something that happened through your physical experience or it's been passed on because of someone else, once you identify that's the why, the when, the why, and where, that's it, release to the surface. Now the work to heal so that we get the long-lasting results is to go, right, this thing here had me falsely believing with an emotional attachment this particular thing. I now know that's not true. It never was. Now the work is to reverse the pattern that's become ingrained, and the pattern is this: a particular emotional alarm will be signaled within you. It will automatically make your mind follow on to what it knows, because this is coming from your subconscious mind. So it automatically triggers a subconscious mind to come up and go, oh, I recognize this. That's going to make me think this. See, I knew I wasn't enough. See, I wasn't worthy. Oh, if I'll just have to go and do this, because if I don't do it, nobody else will, and I'm tired, and whatever it is. Now, those thoughts automatically trigger us to do certain actions. And there you have the loop playing out in front of you. Today, I'm not going to get mad at my spouse or my kids when they do X, Y, and Z. And they do X, Y, and Z, and you feel the emotional trigger, and then your head goes into the pattern, and then you react with what you've rehearsed over and over again, and you do it again, and you go, damn, I promised myself I wasn't going to do that this time. Okay. And that's how we stay looping. For people that aren't sure, go into your body. And if it's hard to begin, you think, I'm not connected to this, okay. Maybe it's not a direct connection from something you've experienced. Could it possibly be this is inherited? And if you think it is, then go back and look at the actions of mom or dad or whoever it was that was round about you. Who could I have learned this from? And make that a starting point.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And I do know of some people that have become so disconnected through all of this that they do live in their minds. And when we say, well, what does your body feel like? I don't know. I can't tell. So it might take a little while to make that connection, the mind-body connection again. But I think if we start with small little sensations, right? Even like hunger or thirst, just small realizations, we can bring that back. We can come back into our bodies.
It's allowing ourselves to be curious, because it really is. And how you said that, some people, they might find it hard to trust. Then one of the best tools you can start practicing, even just for 2 to 5 minutes each day, is a heart-brain coherence meditation. There's so many ones on YouTube with different hertz, like 0.1 hertz, 0.7. These are all going to bring the heart and brain into that state of coherence. And the most simplest instruction I'll give to anyone, go find music like that, put it on, get yourself into a nice relaxed state. On the inhale, breathe in love. Breathe it in through every cell, not just your nose and your mouth, every cell of your body, see it coming to you from every direction. And then on the exhale, breathe out that love to everywhere. And that's it. That's all you need to do for 2 to 5 minutes. And you will start to bring yourself into that state of heart-brain coherence. And then you can ask yourself, where do I feel this? And the first sensation that, allow yourself to follow that inner guidance, the first place you're taken to, that's the response you're looking for, especially if you think, oh, it can't be that. Boom, you're on the money every time.
That makes so much sense. I felt that before too. It seemed too simple, right? That was the thing. Oh, that simple thing can't be causing all of these things to rebel from it. But it's exactly that. Sometimes the answer is quite simple. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Now, Laura, if our listeners are curious and they want to know more or they want to connect with you, find out more about how you work with chakras and how you could help them maybe in their own struggles, how can people get a hold of you? And what kind of programs and services do you have available to share with our listeners?
Well, first off, people can get hold of me at my website, which is super easy, www.lauramorrice.com. I would also like to extend an invitation to my private Facebook group, which is the Pattern Reset group. Now, this is my community. Yes, you find me in social media, but this is my community that I go a little bit deeper in. And I share more live meditations, other people in for interviews and stuff like this. So it's my community of all things energy alignment, literacy, and pattern recognition. So that's a really good place for people to come into, because obviously they can come in. There's lots of free resources. There's lots of things that they can begin, even just to be that observer from the outside, if they're new to it all. There's links going up I have a free chakra diagnostic test. This is a wonderful tool. It's a series of multiple choice questions. You go and you answer it, and then you will get your results. It's going to show which one of the lower 3 energy centers is running the most dominant pattern or program in you at the moment. And then from that result, you are then invited into a free masterclass, my success blocking masterclass. So you're getting a free tool with more of a description about how this pattern's interrupting you. That gives you a kind of starting point, but then you're invited into another free masterclass off the back of that. I also have a monthly protocol that I run. It's called 30-day pattern reset protocol. 30 days, you take one pattern with you that you're aware is running, but you, for the life of you, can't shift it. There are frequency calibrations to listen to each day and a reflective question. The work takes no more than 20 minutes. The first round completed not too long ago, and every single participant gave it 10 out of 10. Some of them are coming back on to do it again. It's proven, this methodology works. There's a WhatsApp group that runs with it. So yeah, no more than 20 minutes a day for the participants. They can do it at their own time in a day. They don't have to show up at a certain time. And there is the WhatsApp group for the support and the accountability. So it's perfect for those who say, I'd love to do some work, but I really don't have the time. 20 minutes a day. And one last thing I'm going to throw in that you don't have a link for, but it makes sense in speaking about so much of my journey. So I do have a book called Signposts to Source. It's available on all Amazon or online book retailers. And it's basically a collection of memoirs, the most important bits in my life that has led me through my journey as a young child, the challenges with my mum, my heroin addiction. It goes through the whole lot. So for anybody that actually wants to know more about me and getting into the chakra system, Signposts to Source, that's there. It's a kind of cross between a collection of memoirs stroke self-development book. There's also some exercises in it for you as well.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing those resources. And we'll be sure to add the book link to the show notes as well. And as always, please go check the show notes for all of the links that Laura just mentioned. We'll be sure to connect you there to her socials, her offerings, her programs, and also where you can find her book on any of your Amazon links as well. And thank you, Laura, for being here today and sharing this wisdom with us. I feel that the chakras are kind of, some people's eyes glaze over when we start talking about it. Yeah. This to me was a really practical and even scientific look at how all of this comes together in all of the different layers of our body, our mind, our emotions, our energetic systems. So thank you so much for sharing that and the hard-won wisdom that you have been experiencing for a long time and working on this in your own body, in your own mind. So thank you so much for generously sharing that with our listeners today.
It's been my absolute pleasure, honestly. I just want everyone to welcome in the wonderful world of chakras into their life. It really is. At the very least, it's our internal map to alignment. At the very greatest, it's our internal map to enlightenment while we're here in the 3D. So I know how much it's helped me. I hope it can help many more in the same way. So thank you for the opportunity to share my story and some wisdom for your listeners. Thank you.
Yeah, so beautifully said. And thanks everyone for tuning in today. I hope you're taking away a lot of little nuggets and go back through the episode, pick up some of the things that Laura was talking about. There was a lot of wisdom shared that you can apply, of course, in your own lives that you can try out. and see how that gives you some clues maybe to what's happening with your own patterns. And as always, I look forward to hearing you again in our next episode. And until then, take care of yourselves and be well. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Jōrni Podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Jōrni on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejorni.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.